All right, welcome to another Journey on My Mind. I know we're blanking in the middle of something, but in case you are wondering, we went home, changed clothes, showered, and came back and put the same clothes back on.
Yeah, that is right.
Except for the showering part.
Except for the showering part, yeah. But anyway, we were in the middle of this conversation around this idea of aging, how it affects people, and it's good to hear it from the perspective of somebody who is aging and getting older, because there's a psychology to that. And
Are you talking about Dave?
yeah.
Please talk about that.
Wow.
It's okay to use names.
That's pretty
it's
bold.
okay.
Yeah, we can use names.
Yeah.
And yet, at the same time, we walk through this with so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And today we kind of want to talk about that. But on our last episode of Journey on My Mind, we talked a little bit about, what is it called, Dave, so I don't get it wrong?
Musical ear syndrome.
Musical ear syndrome.
It's where an older person, this is rare, but they hear music from their youth.
Yeah.
And they really hear it, but it's not really happening. So they think, oh, the people next door are playing this song, or I'm hearing this thing.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law's sister had it, and I thought it was made up.
Yeah.
And I looked it up, and it's a real thing.
So did it go away though?
It's still there.
Oh.
She
just still hears.
Oh yeah, she'll be like,
the
oh.
hymns.
And there's no right, because she's got Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
It's every day's a new day.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's like, oh,
Yeah.
how nice of them to keep playing those
Yeah.
hymns of the faith.
Right. Yeah.
Is it like tinnitus? Because I have that.
No.
Oh, different. thing.
Totally.
Okay,
I
different
feel
thing.
like Steve and I both feel like we're getting that.
Well,
like every once in a while,
yeah,
we hear
it's-
the ringing.
Yep.
It's terrible.
That's just the phone.
when you hear it all the time, that's when you know.
Yeah. So if, like, she heard hymns, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if we thought it'd be fun just to talk about what we would hear
Right. What would be our
if we
playlist
got
in our
if we
head?
got this. Yeah. So
I got it.
Go ahead, Dave.
So this is like the songs from your youth that stick in your head the most. Easy one for me.
Okay.
Billy Joel, Elton John. That would be the
Ooh,
playlist.
okay.
Now there'd be some Rush mixed in there,
Yeah.
and there'd be some Boston, and there'd be
Yeah. Now we're talking.
You know, that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
it would be predominantly Billy Joel, Elton John.
That's a good
By the way,
playlist.
my fear would be it would be Molly Hatchet, because I went through a Molly Hatchet phase, and that would not be good.
Wow.
Now.
That'll be the one that stays.
Can we turn off the Molly Hatchet?
Right.
I think mine will just be my mom going, "Get in here, Samuel Wade Barnhart." That's like gonna play over
That's
and
your
over.
playlist.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know.
You've got a lot of music
Yeah,
genres
there's a-
going around in that head.
Yeah.
It would be a heavy metal band, though.
Maybe. Yeah, I could see like some 80s hair metal, like love songs, like Winger, or like,
Kiss.
all the classics.
Kiss.
Firehouse, that was me. Probably Firehouse. We might hear a couple Firehouse songs in my head. Maybe some Weezer or Radiohead. It's broad. I've got lots of musical options.
Depends on the day.
A deep cut.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, when we talked about it last time, the first thing that popped into my mind before I knew we were even going to have this conversation was Nirvana.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
That would probably be playing in my mind.
Would you
Yeah.
be okay with that? Like, would it plague you, or would you be like, oh, that's good?
No, I'd be good with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I'd be.
Yeah.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm choosing my preferred playlist.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
for
selecting.
later on.
You're curating.
I'm actually saving
You're
this.
curating your musical
this
ear
is
syndrome.
preparation.
It would be the Eagles, and probably over and over again, maybe with
Queen.
probably some Queen, and
You and Randy would have the same playlist.
Hall & Oates probably
Okay.
would be thrown in there.
Oh.
And then if it got thrown into my real childhood, it would be Johnny Cash and Roger Miller.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because that's what my parents listened to.
Yeah.
And I can sing those songs like nobody's business. So I
Folsom
could,
Prison.
if I'm old, yeah.
That whole record,
I mean,
man. Yeah.
yeah. So
I'd go
one
there
I
with you.
wouldn't want it to be is my parents loved the Carpenters. And I was like,
Whoa,
Oh.
easy.
Can
I
we-
love
Yeah.
the Carpenters.
can we not? Can we not?
One of
Yeah.
my favorite records came out when we were in college. It would have been our college years. It was called "I Wish I Was a Carpenter," and it was all these grunge and alternative bands
Oh,
that
yeah,
covered.
I
You remember
totally
that?
remember
It
that.
was one of my favorite records.
I
So,
don't
totally
remember
forgot
Sorry,
about
Kev.
that
That's
till
all right.
just
So
right
good.
now when you said that.
Well,
That's
you're welcome.
crazy.
You're welcome.
But that's the,
Yeah.
So if it went back to that, it would be like the Statler Brothers and the,
Yeah, man.
that stuff.
Wow.
My parents loved that. 8-track tapes, back of the old Ford Country
Statler
Squire
Brothers.
wagon.
By the way, anybody who's 30 and younger is just
Yeah.
turn the podcast
Yeah,
off
sorry.
at this point.
Right,
Not
right,
just
right.
that.
Way to
the
go,
whole, our
Kev.
whole, like,
Yeah.
They're like, no, thank you.
Alabama might be in there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like they'd be okay with Queen and Nirvana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in other words, what you like.
Well, and Kevin,
Yeah.
my kids listen to Queen.
No, I think Queen is timeless.
Oh, yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Great.
Is there
100%.
is there a TV show disease like this where a TV show would just come on?
Oh, man.
And I would hear over and over again because those are probably as populated in my brain
Yeah.
as like Three's
I
Company.
feel like I'm already
and,
doing that.
MASH.
Did you watch Love American Style?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
You
Yeah.
should have.
It came on in the afternoon.
Love American
It
Style.
Yeah.
was like a little risque, and
Wow,
it was on
that's
at like
crazy.
3:30 in the afternoon.
No, it was a lot risque.
Yeah.
I never
It
even
was
heard
like-
of it.
What?
I know.
It was
this
the
is crazy.
prequel to Bachelor in Paradise.
Oh, okay.
Except it was scripted. It was like sort of
Yeah.
a comedy, but
Okay.
weird.
Wow.
It was just a weird
I've
show.
never even heard of that.
Those, because nobody was home, and I'd be like, oh, I guess I'll watch
Except
Love
the
American
kids.
Style.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
Just
like
got
the Love
home.
Boat too.
Oh yeah,
Love Boat, yeah, that
we
one,
called
yeah.
it the Lust Boat, but
Yeah.
Better description. Yeah.
but anyway, sorry, I just totally derailed our conversation.
it's good.
So aging, I wonder if those pictures will come back at some point because my dad would talk about Gunsmoke all the time. And he was old. And
Now anyone 20 and younger.
Yeah, they just,
did you just gasp? Did you just
Yeah, I
gasp?
don't know. I just thought it was
We've
funny.
lost everyone now.
We're falling. Kevin,
This is just
throwing
Do you
up.
know what
going
that-
out into nothing.
Kevin's throwing up in the corner. Everybody, look out! He got ticked.
That was a gasp.
Gunsmoke.
Must keep that in.
Yeah.
So funny. All right. Do you know what Gunsmoke
Yes.
is? Oh.
My grandpa used to watch those
Yeah.
shows all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My grandpa did.
My dad was like a big fan. Anyway, so as we now care for our aging friends and family, how does this? We kind of ended with a how does this really play out in our lives in which we can enter in and be helpful in these moments of fear, these moments of acceptance, these moments of
So, do you remember the commercial, The Hair Club for Men?
I
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Oh yes.
I've been calling. They shut the number down.
What the?
Jeez.
Do you remember
Kev's on
at the end, the guy said, I'm not just the president, I'm also a
Also-
member.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
That's how I feel today.
Oh.
Like, I feel like I'm usually in this spot of like, here's some things from
Yeah, yeah.
psychology that can help us. And I'm like, tell me things that
Yeah.
can help because
Right.
I am very much in the muckety muck of this right now.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel very much like with my own mom and with some of our circumstances
Yep.
that we're like having to constantly think through some things that are we haven't had to
Yeah.
think through before.
Right. It's hard. 'Cause
And
yeah,
have some
yeah.
frustrations that we've never had before.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just going to confess that I'm not coming from a position of
Oh, I know what
here
to
we
do.
go, we got
right.
this nailed down.
Yeah.
I would,
Yeah.
and so I want to hear from you guys. The thing I'll offer right out of the gate is what I want to get to is a place of greater empathy
Yeah.
because that's hard. It feels like it wouldn't be hard, but it is hard.
It's very hard.
Some of
It
it's they're just frustrating things and frustrating circumstances and changes and things that are just it's hard to be empathetic in it. That's what
Yes.
I'll just acknowledge that up front.
My mom says over and over again over the last few years is that after my dad died, so she's alone, and she goes, she'll say this over and again. It's just getting old sucks. It's not
Yeah.
for wimps. It's not. It is hard.
Yeah.
And so we would talk about that. Why is it hard? What is it? Between all the physical things. But then she and I've heard people say this before, but she talks about a series of losses.
And we referred to that last time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She talks about I lost my husband.
Yeah.
I lost my ability. And part of this is, you have to have conversations with your mom. I've had to have all these conversations
Yep.
with my mom. Okay, Mom, you can't drive anymore.
Yep.
I'm going to take away your driver's license and your car. Oh, lots of tears. A lot. I mean, you could kill somebody. We're not doing this anymore. So then now we have to figure out, all the circumstances around that. And then, okay, you can't live alone anymore because this doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you got to go live with my sister. And now we have to make decisions about how long she can stay at my sister's and how long, do we do home care? So all those decisions. And she's acknowledging all these losses. And so there's a grieving process that she goes through each time she hits a loss. And this was the thing that dawned on me when I took her car away. She just sat there and cried.
Mm.
She said, "You don't understand. My freedom is gone."
Yeah.
And she went down this list. And I was like, "Mom, I'm really sorry, but you understand why we have to do this." And she said, "I understand it.
Yeah.
But you need to understand this is awful."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had that was a tough,
Mhm.
that's very like, it's
Yeah.
just right in the front of my mind with my dad, that conversation when,
Right.
cause for me, my dad lived with us the last 15 years of his life. So from my, early 30s, I'm a caretaker,
Yeah.
and I didn't have any idea how that was going to look, and we made a lot of mistakes along the way. But I remember, when we had to kind of take his keys away essentially, or for him to stop driving. I wanted it to him to be a part of that decision, like and ultimately if he wasn't going to be, we were going to have to make that move. But we sat down, and my dad, like, he always loved people. Like I think I get that honest in a sense from my dad.
Your dad was very social.
He was.
Yeah.
And he, I think his greatest fear was hurting somebody else. And so when we had the conversation, we had to frame it up in a way that was, Dad, like, this is much less about you. It is about you, but how would you feel if something happened, and you would never do that intentionally. And so that was the aha for him.
Right.
But I'm thankful that he was able to come to that place too.
Sure.
And, sometimes that happens along the way, and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
But yeah.
And there's more on the forefront. See,
Mm-hmm.
my mom handles I handled their money since 2012.
Yeah.
Because my mom would spend it all.
Right.
So, but she still has some autonomy, and she can write some checks to some things, and she has checks. Do we need to explain what checks are? And now we have to take that away because now we have to start paying for care. So you can't just write a check to some
that all starts
political party that you like, and so there's another loss right now that's coming, and she's aware.
Mm-hmm.
So
I wonder how much of the the lack of empathy or the struggle for empathy is due to the fact that the parent-child relationship longing doesn't ever go away, particularly if you're on the younger end of the spectrum of having to care for an aging parent. And like, you're frustrated at them because of all the changes that are happening and how they won't cooperate. But is there anything to, like, I'm still reaching for my mom, and I can't have my mom in the way that I think I might need my mom?
I would think
any?
Yeah, I would think it would have to be.
Yeah.
And it also seems like it flips the relationship where
for
100%.
sure.
I now you cared for me, and you were this sort of safe place for me for many people, not all people.
Yeah.
And now I have to care for you, and the just the flipping of that, and the anger that goes with that, the fear that goes with that. But I think the relationship itself is so emotionally deep and charged in whether it's been a good or not
bad.
good.
I would say that was a lot of my work, because my dad blew up our life as a teenager, and with addiction. Yeah. And so then having him, caring for him, there was a lot of work that I had to do and my wife had to do around all of that, to get to a place where we could be empathetic. Because it was hard to get empathetic. It was hard for me to get to and it's not hard normally. Like that's usually my like a default place for me. But with this, there was so much history that when it was like, I kind of felt like, wow, you did this, you did that. Now I'm forced to do this. It almost felt like I didn't have a choice in it, and that, but I did ultimately, and I'm thankful we made the choice we did, and that we did the hard work of getting to that place. But it was hard.
Yeah. And my struggle, I think, is the opposite in a little way of the two of you, in that when you're describing your mom, she's coming to terms with all these losses and grieving them in front of you in real time.
Really, yes.
And I feel like my situation is where my mom hasn't come to terms with that. And so she's like, I'm going to get a dog like you have. And we're like, you cannot get a Labradoodle because they jump up and they'll knock you down.
Yeah.
I really like your dog. I think I'm going to get that dog. And then she gets the dog.
Oh, no.
And then the dog knocks her down.
Oh, no.
And it's like, then we have to take away the car. And she's like, well, I really have to get my hair done. I think I'll go drive to, there's no way you can drive.
Right.
Then, things about like people are trying to take advantage of you with some financial things you can't do. Well, I need Brian, my brother, to take me to Walmart so I can get gift cards so I can pay this bill that I have. You know,
totally.
It's like there's just it's a failure to acknowledge it, and so that happens as well.
Yeah,
I think
it still happens. Yeah,
where you have an older parent or loved one who's grieving their loss, and we're in that with them, and others that it's a failure, it's a denial. And then that is a different kind of frustration and situation.
You're talking about like you know, the how the parent-child relationship kind of flips at a time. And, you know, as you're describing that, it's almost like you're raising a teenager again, or you're like, but
it's what it feels like.
It's kind of like almost this reversal of
That's
all
exactly
of that.
what it feels like. It feels like you got a child who wants to rebel, and you've got to set a limit, and then is it your job to set a limit?
It's weird because it's your dad or your mom, or it actually really, it kind of messes with.
If no one else will do it, somebody has to do it. That's
right.
Otherwise, it's going to end really badly.
The thing that's interesting for me that I'm experiencing with my dad now, because he doesn't live in the country, I don't see him on a consistent basis. And so he was here this last summer, spent a month here, and I hadn't seen him for 6 years prior to that. But in that time, I've done a lot of my own work on like my child wounds and stuff like that. And so now at this stage, seeing him, I became very aware, he's an addict. And he, as a result of that or whatever, like there's a lot of narcissism there. And so coming to that understanding now, it's been really hard for me to have empathy, because now I'm like looking back at all the things.
You have to rework the story backwards.
So now I have to, and so that, and like there were times where I would get so frustrated with him when he was here. I would get angry, and he would be like, "Stop getting so angry at me." And I kept trying to find my serenity and be like, okay, like he's never going to change at this point. Like nothing's going to change. So how can I be with him in the time that I have to be with him?
Right.
You know? It's tricky.
That's really tricky.
It is. It is.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. And that my mom is I don't know if it's a legit psychological thing, a spendaholic. Is it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not not an official thing, but
she's not happy.
Very real.
She's not happy unless she's spending money.
Right.
And so, and she's squandered hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years, much to the chagrin of my father. But then my father he had dementia and died. So then it all fell to me. And so this is where the lack of empathy comes in for me, is like, well, if you want to waste all your money, I could put you in a really nice place. But we don't have that money now. And you're stuck. So that's part of, and so I do feel genuinely bad for her, because I don't know, she's my mom.
It's the tricky part. It's the competing thing in our head.
Right.
Where there's part of us is
it's
like
a good way of describing it.
Older, and we need to care for them. And
whereas an outside person, say my wife, says she did this to herself. I said, I realize that we are here because of choices she made.
That's right.
She's still my mom.
It's so much easier for the spouse to say that, though, because Steve's forever trying to talk sense into me too, and I'm just like,
and Lori's right?
Yeah.
You know, you just go, yeah, you're right. And I'll even say, right now I'm feeling guilty because I'm not doing, like I've learned how to have this conversation with my wife in such a way that she understands why I'm about to do what I'm going to do. Is that I'm going to go and help my mom right now. I know I'm being manipulated. I know that all the reasons why I shouldn't, but I won't sleep tonight if I don't go solve this problem.
Yeah.
And I want to sleep tonight. So do you want to come along or not? Yeah, I'll go along. So as long as there's a healthy, like, awareness of, oh yeah, I guess I'm being manipulated, I can live with it.
And the partner issue or the other outside other cuts both ways. Also,
it does.
In that sometimes they're the ones saying, let me knock some sense into you. And sometimes they're the ones that don't have the emotional entanglements, and they're finding it very easy to be
empathetic.
And that was Angela. That was exactly for us.
You're right.
Now, of course, Angie and I have been together since high school. So
And Angela's also a saint.
Yes.
That is.
Yes.
Amen and amen.
The last time I saw her walking on water,
I mean,
oh my
it's
word.
real.
What was I forget? Now I talk
We're
about.
talking about Angela's empathy.
Oh, her empathy. With my dad. Sorry, I was dreaming about my wife.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Calm down
Different
over there.
show.
Calm down.
No,
Sam.
but that she was so gentle and gracious, and there were times that, I knew if she was feeling the energy that I was feeling, like, okay, this is aligned. There's something here. But there was a lot of times where I would feel angry or frustrated, and she would be the one that could kind of pull me back to center with it, like.
Yeah.
Talk some sense into me in a sense, I guess.
Yeah.
So there is a balance, I think, that
Yes.
the spouse plays.
Yeah.
So there's this emotional side of it, and then there's also this very practical side.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you I'm going to share my own experience of this, but I think it's probably going to be fairly universal.
Okay.
Is obviously our charge, those who care for people who are aging,
Yeah.
is to help with the practical realities of, do they need to be in assisted living? What kind of, do they need in-home support? What do they do for transportation? All those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I have found myself procrastinating. Right? It's like, there should be some plan toward, if it's going to end up in assisted living, we should explore the options.
Right.
And I found myself procrastinating. And then I remember, every time procrastination pops up, we think of it as a time management thing. I'm busy. I don't have the time. It's not. A procrastination is always the avoidance of a negative emotion.
Right.
I literally just read that somewhere this last week.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's it. So then you have to kind of reflect on, is it because I'm mad? Is it because I'm scared?
Yeah.
Is it because I'm sad about it?
Yeah.
And I think the more you can identify, and that's been helpful to me.
Yeah.
And actually, knowing we were going to have these conversations has been helpful to me also.
Oh, cool.
Because I wanted to be like, okay, I'm going to push through this. It's a very subtle but real wall of, I find myself kind of holding back on making the kinds of plans, or at least the exploratory part of that.
Yeah.
And once I realize, oh, I'm doing that, and what's that drawing up in me, then I can kind of begin to push into it more.
That's awesome.
So
I'm not the full-time caretaker for my mom, but I am the respite help, basically is what I am. So when my sister needs a break, I get my mom.
But you're the financial, and
I've been doing the finances.
That's a different kind of caregiving, but it is a primary form of caregiving.
But the last time I saw my sister and her husband, I was like, oh, this is starting to take a toll. I need to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I said something. And
to them or to
them,
your mom?
not to my mom.
Okay.
I said something. I said, I want to explore putting her into assisted living. And they were like, well, no, I promised. I made a promise.
That's how it was with my aunt and grandma too.
Same with us.
And I said, I see this taking a toll. I was just really honest.
Yeah.
And I said, we need to consider this. Well, my sister said, well, I'll pray about it and Jesus will tell me. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to send you some information.
Yeah.
So I just rolled into it. And then I said, and I'm going to talk to mom about it. Really? Yeah, I'm going to talk to mom about it.
Well, and your sister's not exactly a spring chicken either, right?
She's 65.
Yeah.
Well, that's not too old.
Yeah, she's 5 years older than me.
But it's up there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of the deal, right? Is that old people taking care of old people.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
anyway,
my aunt was 80,
taking care
almost
of
85
Taking
by
care
the
of your
time
mom.
my grandma passed away.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So she's a caretaker at 85.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so leaning into that actually, and I really did wonders for my relationship with my sister.
Oh, that's cool.
She saw that I cared for her, saw that I was, I had empathy for her and her husband, and I can have hard conversations with my mom for whatever reason nobody else can have. And so we have these hard conversations. My mom said, well, okay, that makes sense, And my mom always is a pleaser, so she'll say whatever I want. So there's a degree of, you're just saying that because you don't think we'll ever do it. But there is this need to have hard conversations with these people, but also with the caregivers, because the caregivers are like, they're drowning
Yeah.
a lot of times. And it's a large, large chunk. You cared for your dad for 15 years.
Well, I'm just you're like you're hitting me where I live.
Yeah.
Man, you know?
There's a large chunk of time.
Yeah.
Of years.
Yeah.
My sister has had her for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long. None of us thought she would live this long.
We were in kind of similar. I mean, we knew Dad would live for a long time. We didn't know that his body would start shutting down, and
right.
You know what it was going to become. It was our, you know, we didn't have any experience, you know,
right.
But it just it became so big that you know, because we said the same thing, like we'll take care of you all the way to the end, and so. And I meant that. But the thing we didn't do that I would encourage, and this is maybe a whole different conversation, but I'll just throw it in here, is how do you set boundaries around that? What does that look like? If I could go back and do it all again, I would have set some really healthy boundaries in place. Right. And I think it could have been much healthier.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Could you say more about it? Like,
I
don't want you to get too specific, but enough where it's helpful. Like what would you have done with boundaries that you?
For instance, you know, Dad was my dad, and so you know, I'm parenting my kids, but my dad would always want to sprinkle in his. You know, he'd come over the top sometimes, and you know, we would let, you know, I was ADD kid, I was rowdy and all that, you know. And
it isn't so.
Yeah, I know, and I think that probably, you know, I can see how that would exhaust my parents after a while, but we're pretty relaxed with our kids about that. I'm like, I want them to, you know, I want them just to be able to enjoy, and my dad would kind of be that, you know, Scrooge. Quiet down. And I'm like, Dad, if I want him to quiet down, I'll tell him to quiet down. This is my house.
Get off the grass.
So it was those kinds of things around like how we're going to exist together and live together in this environment, and you know, I hate the word rules, but you know, in a sense, like you know, boundaries and rules of how we're going to do this. If you're having someone live with you.
Right.
That's good.
And be warned, it will take a toll on you.
Yeah.
100%.
It will take a toll on you.
My mom lived with us for 2 years before she went into a nursing home, and it had gotten to the point where I couldn't do it. And I couldn't even get caregivers to come and do
That's
it.
right.
So it was getting really, really hard. Yeah. And once, I mean, I had to overcome a whole lot of shame from our culture and just this idea that I was, culture of origin. That I would be failing her if I put her in a nursing home. But once I did, and I saw how much better it was for her. Now we found a really great, sweet place.
Yeah.
And it made me wish that I had done it sooner because it did take a toll on me and especially my kids.
Yeah.
And you know, I hate saying that because we have this pretty big house and we had the room and, you know,
it's
all over the world,
true,
people live in smaller places like this multi-generationally, you know, and that's always what I had in my head that like, this is just an American problem, you know, but the reality is this was my problem.
Part of what happened with my dad, because eventually, you know, he had to be in full-time care the last couple of years of his life. We came to the same realization, which is, I wish we'd have done this sooner, because around when he went in, we had these conversations around that he actually still had purpose. And like, you know, there's all these people that he'd never met, you know, and so I know that's not for everybody, but for my dad and the way he was wired, like helping him see that just because this is where you're at and they can care for you doesn't mean that everything's all done. You still can encourage, and he did, and it was awesome to see that, you know.
Yeah, same with my mom.
Yeah.
I don't have the same cultural background, but I had a family culture where that was the case, where my grandmother cared in the house until my grandfather died in the home. My parents cared for my grandmother. And when I was young, and my mom was a young mom, she got married at 18, had me 2 years later. She's 20 years older than me. So she's young. And I remember her being...
Keep telling yourself that.
But she was like probably 30, maybe. I don't know. I mean, like I was maybe 10 or 11. I have a very distinct memory. We're in the car and she grabs me and says, "Don't ever put me in a nursing home." Like, she's like in her 30s thinking about that. And so that message growing up was, That's not what one does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm the opposite
Me
now.
too, I
I'm
was
like,
just
when
thinking
can
that.
I get that long-term health
Yeah,
insurance
yeah.
that will pay for my wherever I'm going to be, so I don't have to put that burden on
That's
my kids?
right.
Because
Yeah.
that's like
Same thing.
that is actually one of my
I'm
greatest fears is to put that on my kids.
I'm with you.
And
of
again,
how it felt.
going back to my mother-in-law, who's so cool and wise.
Yeah.
They downsized and built a house that's all set up for the whole downstairs is a caretaker suite.
Oh, that's
It's
cool.
all set up for, she has insurance for,
That's
for
amazing.
nursing care. She has all this stuff set up. Like she's done it
It's
perfectly.
like a mother-in-law apartment, except it's for caregiver.
It is,
whenever
right.
she
And
needs
she's
that.
got the insurance to cover
That's
it.
brilliant.
She's got the investments to cover it. But I'm the same way. I'll tell my kids, like, you just like,
Yeah.
I'm going
When
to go
it's
play
time.
bingo and have my hair
That's
done
right.
like my
Oh,
mom
bingo,
did.
dude.
Yeah.
We'll be bingoing it all day, every day.
My mom just got her hair done at the rehab hospital
Yeah.
that she's at here. And
Oh,
I'm
my
like,
mom was
the
such
deal?
my mom was such a diva, and that was the best thing about
Yeah,
get
your hair
NHC is that she could go and get her hair done and her nails done every week.
Yeah.
It was part of the deal.
Yeah.
do you know, you're talking about bingo. Do you know that Ellen, up until this month, was volunteering at an assisted living center as a bingo caller?
No way.
Oh,
every
my
month.
I did not. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
kid you not, she was a bingo
I
I
can
can
caller.
talk to
totally
Ellen.
see it.
and how
it's
do we
perfect.
not get invited to that?
Yeah.
Well, because you're under the
You're-
age of.
Well, we should have her
Still.
call bingo when we have
Oh,
bingo
dude,
night
she
here.
would be the
She
perfect.
would be
Oh my
perfect.
gosh.
She was
Yes.
like, she's great at it.
Oh,
They
dude.
loved her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
she
can
knew all
see
the.
that.
She knew them all by name, and she'd joke them all, and
Yeah.
they'd all try and steal her little prizes.
Yeah.
and
Is there
support-
anywhere Ellen goes where she's not so beloved? Because
No.
she's pretty
No,
lovable.
She is beloved by all.
Hugs and squeezes and kisses.
Yeah,
hey,
Yes.
part of the conversation I did have with my sister and getting her to think this through, and she's now there. She's like, okay, we need to do
Yeah.
something.
Oh, wow.
And which is great. Which I was like, wow. I said, Wanda, we're not dropping her off at Walmart
Right.
with a shopping cart and a bag full of clothes. If
That's
we're going to
good.
do that, that's not honoring mom.
Right.
If we're going to take her to a place where they're going to take care of her, they're going to
Yeah.
they're going to have 24-hour care for her. She's going to be waited on like she shouldn't be, but
Mhm.
I think that's honoring mom.
Yeah.
That's a
I do
really
too.
good perspective.
Mhm.
Yeah. Dropping her off at Walmart, not cool.
Yeah.
Get a job, be a greeter, and
Yeah.
we'll come visit you here at Walmart.
Well, the
Right.
thing that I found when I mean, my mom lived in the nursing home for a year before she passed away.
Yeah.
And that was probably the best year of our relationship
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because I still had to do the caregiving because I was responsible for her and I had to do I had to advocate for her and all of that stuff.
Yeah, which is a lot.
It's a
That's
lot.
different conversation.
It is.
I've learned that over the last
But
few weeks.
because, I mean, I had spent most of my life as her, like, doing things for her
Yeah.
that people don't usually do until
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
They're our age now. But
Right.
but I felt like I just got to show up and be her daughter.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I had ever really experienced that.
That's right. That's
So
That's a gift.
It's a very similar in that the last couple years were really good years, for the most part. When Dad, and it was, I think part of it was we weren't exhausted.
Right.
Like we had other people helping provide some of that
Right.
hands-on, tangible physical care.
Right.
So then when we could just show up and just be family.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
And
said
then-
that so well.
And then empathy comes really easy.
Right.
Yeah, it did.
Right.
It really does.
Yeah.
It
That's
does.
right.
I
When
hope
they
that's
aren't
helpful.
when they aren't demanding things from you,
Yeah.
you move into their camp.
Yep.
You do.
I think that could be really helpful for people to hear, to move them past the guilt of
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm having to take these harder steps to this could actually be really good, not only for him or her, but also for our relationship. And then
Yeah.
the end part of their life is characterized by us being not burnt out and
Right.
not worn out, but really able to just have that relationship.
Yeah.
Engage in a new way. It's
And
good.
I will say my experience was when my mom did go to the nursing home, all those family members that I thought were going to judge me and criticize me, all of them said, this was the best decision you've ever made, or you should have done this a long time ago. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me this
a long
before?
time ago. Right,
Hey,
right,
That'd have been nice to
But
know.
it really did make me realize that there was a lot of work I had to do in my own head and how much pressure I put on myself.
Yeah.
Because yes, I did come from that culture where you take care of people till they die, but there was a lot of circumstances and a lot of things that reshaped our family and yet for me, I just had this thing in me that really needed to be worked out. And it actually shows up in other places in my life. So it's like, you know, that's another thing to look at is when you're feeling that sense of guilt and that obligation and that shame, like, let's get curious about that. And where is that coming from? And where else does that show up? And like, you know, maybe it's not as bad of an idea as you think it's going to be. Yeah.
That's a very powerful takeaway from this conversation. Yeah. I think that could be very helpful to people. And that it's okay we start with all of our own stuff and our own assumptions and begin to push back on those and think about where's the balance point between taking care of ourselves and taking care of this loved one. And I think doing that well is an important part of caring for them.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It's good.
Well, if you have any questions about this, reach out to Sam or me or Suzie or Dave, and we will tell you we don't know. But no, we would love.
Quite the pitch.
We would love to sit and talk with you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because this is part of all of our existence and part of our ongoing struggle with life.
Well, can I just add one more thing?
Sure.
Another thing
you can have the final word, Susie.
The other thing that I learned in that time period was it's okay. It's really important to have respite, like what you're providing for your sister. And it's really important to have other people who will come and sit with your loved one because they have the empathy in that moment that you don't have.
Right.
And so, yes, the invitation to call one of us is really important because it's never going to be as great as you want it to be.
Right.
You know, and it's never something that you can carry alone.
Right.
That's right. It's good.
Good final word.
But it is facing all of us. And with that, have a great snowy day.